Okay, here is just a quick review of how to use the quantitative ISI applet. Okay, so if we go to our ISI applets, this is our homepage. You can go to quantitative and descriptive statistics. This is where we start by exploring our data. Now there are data sets that are in here that are built in like backpack. So I could select that and then I could click use data and then I can use that data. Okay, but let's say you have your own data that you want to use. What you do is you just copy all of it. So just Control-C, come back. So clear all of this data, paste in your new data, just Control-V, paste it in. Okay, click use data. Now you shouldn't have to worry, okay, about doing stacked or including the header. A lot of that will just automatically do it for you. But in this case, you can see I do have headers, so I do want to make sure it includes header is done. The stacked or not, it should do all of that for you automatically. You really shouldn't have to worry about it. Okay, don't forget you have to click use data. Sometimes there's different variables in there, like so it might have time and age and weight, different things like that. And so sometimes you can select which variable you want to look at. In this case, there's only one quantitative variable, the time. So I'm doing time. Separate by, again, these applets have a lot of things that you don't have to use every time. If I want to separate by, like I could separate by the frames. So these are biking times. I just picked a random data set. And some of the bikes had still frames and some had carbon frames. So if I want, I could separate by the frame. And now you can see the carbon frames split out separately than the still frames, which is pretty cool. So you can compare the times for those two groups. Okay, let's see. Different things you can do. Right now I'm at a dot plot. If I want, I can click on this histogram right here. And now I have a histogram. You can also change the number of bins in the histogram, so that's how many actual rectangles there are. So I could do less bins, and you can see as I do less bins, it gets harder to actually tell the shape of the data because it gets lumped into only a few bins, not very useful. And if I do too many bins, then it starts to get really spiky and it's kind of hard to see those overall patterns. Usually whatever it uses for you will probably be fine. You don't usually have to change the number of bins. One of the fun things about this applet is you can do things like guess the mean or the average. So you can drag and be like, oh, I think the average is about here. But you can guess it, or you can click on this box and it will tell you the actual mean. So our actual mean is 108.057. Similarly, you can get the actual median is 107.708. You can find the actual standard deviation of 5.57 or the actual interquartile range. Okay, so pretty cool. Now let's say you wanted to find the actual range or you wanted to look at individual data points. If you go back to the dot plot, you can click on individual data points and over here in the red, it will tell you what it is. So that lowest point is 97.67. And I can tell you that the highest point is 123.33. So I can actually find the range by subtracting the highest and lowest numbers. Now let's clear all of that out. Okay, I can guess the standard deviation, which is fun. When you guess the standard deviation, you can drag these boxes to try and guess, oh, I think one standard deviation might be about that far away. Okay. And you can click show percentages for your guesses. Okay. So for right now, I'm going from like 103.8 to 112.3 was my guess, and it's saying 50% of my data is between those two values. You can see it right there. Now, if I go back to what was my actual standard deviation, it was 5.517. If I drag these lines out to match up as close as I can, okay, about here, you can see there's about 67.8% of my data within one standard deviation, which is pretty cool. Or if I wanted to go out 2 standard deviations, that would be about 11. Let's see if I can drag this 11 out. So that's about 98% of all of my data, and I went, I think, a little bit far if I go just a little bit in. Okay. I'm closer to about 95% of our data, and we're going to learn in this class that for most data sets, you'll have about 68% of your data will be within one standard deviation of the average, and 95% of your data will be within 2 standard deviations of the average, and that works for a lot of data sets. That's one of our favorite rules in statistics. So that's why we have this like show percentages, so you can drag it out 2 standard deviations and see, oh yeah, that is about 95% of my data is within 2 standard deviations of the average. Other than that, I think that's most of what we're going to do with this applet. Again, it's fun. We can do dot plots or histograms. You can change the number of bins back on your dot plots. Let's clean all of that up. You can select individual points. You can even delete an individual point to see what happens to the average or standard deviation. You can revert to go back, put the point back. You can do a box plot if you want a box plot. Okay. You can show outliers. A lot of different things we can do here just to explore the data.